Well, I'm here with Robert Wray, grandson of President Fanning, who we think was the what number president was President Fanning? Do you remember?
I'm sorry.
What number president was your granddad?
I think he was the fourth.
Yep, he was.
You are correct. He was the fourth,
Yeah.
and a popular one, as I understand.
Yeah, I think he was. Yes, he was here for 11 years, so that suggests he was popular, at least in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, if you can last in this job for 11 years, you're pretty damn good at what you do. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, good.
Well, so as I understand it, you had a birthday,
Yes, I had a birthday the 3rd of this month.
and you are how old?
90,
90 years old.
yes.
One of the things that I think is so great about this, one of the reasons we wanted to capture it, is that this is what you asked for your birthday, was to come and see the house you grew up in. Is that true?
Yes, and the present was given me by my daughter Christy.
Yeah, she's a great lady, isn't she?
She is.
So where do you live now?
I live in Pine Grove, California, 2 words. That's not precisely true. I live outside of Pine Grove. I have a log cabin that my wife and my children built with our own little hot hands on weekends.
That's wonderful.
My wife and I both retired from Hewlett-Packard back in the days when it was Hewlett-Packard. So we wanted a retirement home. We didn't like the city. We both had lived in the city, and we both had lived in suburbia. So we found a place way up in the Sierra foothills. We're at an elevation of 2,500 feet, and we can look down at you've seen the mountains, you've been to the mountains, so wonderful place to live.
That sounds wonderful. Where did you meet your wife?
In Cupertino, California. And interestingly, she's originally from Yonkers, New York.
Oh my goodness. So she grew up in New York and you grew up in Goodwell, Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
And you met in California.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like an all-American story to me.
It's an all-American story, isn't it?
How many
Yep.
kids?
Well, this was the second marriage for both of us, and between us we had 5. That's Christy's the youngest.
Okay. Very nice. So tell us a little bit. What everybody needs to understand is that we've already been through the house, and you were the first family to move into the house. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I explained to you, and they already know through other things that we've done. We're in the process of renovating
Yes.
the house. And there's some great symmetry here because you were 2 or 3 years old. You were a toddler when you moved in. And my boy just turned 4 in July, and he'll move in about, it's probably going to take about a year to renovate.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
And when I think about it, my grandfather Fanning, when I was born, was probably in his mid-40s.
Okay.
Probably not very far from your age.
Okay. Well, I'm 45, and so
Okay,
that's...
so there's the continuation of that parallel that we're looking at. Wow,
Yeah.
amazing.
Doesn't matter how far you go in the world, a lot of things stay the same, don't they?
They seem to.
Yeah.
They stay the same among all the things that have changed. Ooh,
Yeah. So let me ask you, what was it like to grow up on this campus?
A little kid, say from 3 to 6 or 7, couldn't have, back in those days, the mid to late 1920s, could not have had a better place to grow up, especially as small as the college was at that time. All of the faculty took care of me as a little kid. You just told us about the student body, the size of the student body. There were only a couple of hundred students in the place, and they were all very local kids in the here, and they just all took care of me. There was a gentleman did a lot of stuff back. There were barns back here where you now have um, dormitories
Okay.
and so on. And there was a gentleman with the name of Ed Geek. I think that's spelled Giek
Okay.
or Giek, Mr. Geek. And I used to go down there and pester him, and he'd let me ride with him on the different machinery that he was running, the horse-drawn machinery.
Wow.
Back in those days, a lot of the farming was done with horse-drawn machinery. So Mr. Geek would let me do that. Other faculty, some of the experimental farm faculty would see me around the campus, get me in their car, and take me out to the experimental farm. Just a little anecdote quickly, and I'll get rid of this. Little kids hear things, and sometimes they don't hear them precisely what they are. We used to eat a lot. There was a college cafeteria up here on the north end of the campus, just on the street and about midway. I think there's probably a dormitory there now, and right across the street from there is where the little gray frame house is where I was born.
Wow.
But it's also now a dormitory.
Right.
It's number 3 on the map, if that means anything. But when we would eat in the college cafeteria, I would be allowed to go through the serving line with my own little tray, my own big tray.
Yeah.
And but there was one thing that always fascinated me. It was a fluffy white material that was in here, and when several times I asked, "What is it?" And I was told, here's where the ear comes in. I was told it was cottage cheese. Well, one fact I knew was that a lot of the food in the college cafeteria came from the experimental farm out here. So that was the college farm, and that's what we used to call it, the college farm. And so here's this stuff, and my hearing wasn't very good even then. And to this day, I still call it college cheese.
Because that's where everything came from.
That's where I heard it, and that's where everything came from.
That's awesome.
Okay, excuse me, go ahead.
No, not at all. For whatever it's worth, we still call it the college farm.
Yeah, okay,
So,
good.
And we might actually change it in the cafeteria to actually be called college cheese, just in your honor. Is there anything else you can think about growing up?
Oh,
Those are great stories.
I can tell you a lot of anecdotes about funny things. I thought they were funny. The faculty and the students sometimes didn't think they were so funny. Oh my!
Is there anything that you would say to the current students? Any advice after 90 years of living?
The only thing I can think of would be perhaps an admonition to respect your professors and instructors and get an education and go out in the world and do good things. Without an education, it is pretty tough.
Mr. Wray, thank you. Thank you for helping us honor this.
Thank you, sir, for having
You bet.
me and for the honor that you've given me. I don't deserve it.
Oh, I think you did. Thank you so much. You did good.